So we are once again learning for the Menucha of Sir Mosmat Ifyor, surnamed Dangur, and Le Ilui Nishmat Adina Miriam Bat Yocheva in Bat Yocheved. So let's start from page 13. The Gemara in Chulin says something that's very interesting in itself, but not really the topic I want to go into. I want to focus on a side point in this Gemara. The Gemara says like this: Chulin daf tetvav hilchata shoched lechole b'Shabbat mutar labri beunza ma'itama kivan di ifshar lekazait b'sal b'lo shchita ki kashachit adad dechole kashachit. So the doctor says this man must eat meat. He must, or he'll die. So you don't have any kosher meat around. So what do? You shacht another animal. Kol b'seder, right? You shacht an animal. Now, how much meat does the animal have on it? A lot. All right. Can someone who is not sick now eat from that meat? Now, on Shabbos.
The meat is raw.
The meat is raw. Yeah. Is that a problem? You're not a real carnivore. There are you in terms of the blood. I'm not going to go into that halacha, but there are ways of getting rid of the blood without melicha that will allow you to eat the meat raw, but only raw. Because it's raw, you're allowed to eat it like that. In terms of eating raw, you can write Shmooze here. He can explain to you how to eat the meat raw. He's on the Zoom. So the Gemara says that there's no problem again. If you want to eat the meat raw, there's no problem. Why? Because you only shechted once, and you can't shecht any less than that. Right? You can't shecht less than. It's rare. It's very, very, very rare that you'll shecht something and only one person will eat that, unless you have whatever. Right? You have a certain. Right? Yeah, it's a certain poultry, whatever. Right? So. Now, as opposed to if you cook for someone who's sick, but you cook too much, so we always cook too much. We're Jewish, right? We always cook too much. So you cook for the sick person. There's always going to be leftovers. Can I eat the leftovers now? You say, well, it was cooked beheter. This isn't Masa Shabbat. It was cooked beheter. You should be allowed, right?
The Jew that cooked it or not?
Yeah, the Jew cooked it. You cooked it. I cooked it.
Asr to the Jew, much of the others. No.
So the Gemara says the reason you're not allowed. So if you cook for the sick person, I cooked for the sick person because he's sick, and the doctor says he needs to eat cooked meat, so I cooked the meat for him. That's not a problem. And I'm going to cook too much because he can never cook exactly the amount he needs. That's fine. The issue is if I cook knowing that I could eat what's the leftovers, so next time there'll be some more leftovers. So, and that's why there's Xera, you're not allowed to eat it, even though it's fine that you cook too much. Because you can't cook, that's fine. But you're not allowed to eat it because people will cook too much by mistake. Right? Who wouldn't want to have a fresh meat on Shabbos, right?
What the Shabbat you have to wait? Did they not say?
No, right away. Because we don't go that far with this Xera, right? It's just Xera for that. But the Maharam Rotenberg has a different problem. So all this is fine. This is reasonable, right? Makes sense? You do one Chilul Shabbat.
Thank you.
I'm on page 13. You do one Chilul Shabbat, so that person could, so anyone, or if it's one Chilul Shabbat this way or that, it's not a problem. If we're talking about cooking, where every kazait could be another isur, or adding more fire, or whatever, then we have to be stringent so that you know not to be makel next time. Says Maharam Rotenberg, Mashek Shamurenu, Hach mutar lishchot lechole b'Shabbat isur skila, mutav shiknu lo nevela shehilav. So he has a totally different problem. He says, I pointed out we don't have anything kosher. So what am I doing? I'm going to shecht the animal. I give him, must be 69. These are 69s. Look together in time. Wait, you took home last time, no?
Yeah,
so it's by you.
Yeah.
All right. But that's 69, no? Or 67 still, yeah. So the question is, why are you shechting at all? I said, you'll note, I tried to confuse you guys. I said, we don't have any kosher meat, but we do have treif meat. So bring treif meat, right? What's worse, eating treif meat or shechting on Shabbos?
Eating Treif.
Is worse, is more chamor, is bigger isur.
Well, I guess because I believe that you're allowed to you're allowed to chef because someone's sick, so.
No, but if you're sick, you can also,
Yeah.
right? We have situations where soldiers are out there and they have no one to shecht for them, so they have their malasot. If you're in Lebanon and you have no way of getting, right? So, what's the difference? The difference is that's karet and that's a lav. So l'chora it's mechilul Shabbat is worse. So Arenberg says, if you have treif meat, should you be eating that instead of shechting? So that's the question. Now there are three answers the Rishonim say. One option is to say, of course, the simple option is to say you live in a place where you don't have any meat at all right now. There's nothing you can get, and the only meat you can get now is by shechting your animal, and then you have to shech. That's right. That's one way to answer. But the Rishonim took different directions. Let's see their calculus. So says the Ran is on page 14. Nireli de legabei chole en isur nevela kal mi isur Shabbat. דנהי דנבלה איסור לאו, ושבת איסור סקילה, איכא חומרא אחרינא בנבלה, לפי שהאוכלה עובר בלאו על כל כזית וזית שבה, אבל לעניין שבת לא עבר אלא בשעת שחיטה, וחד לאו הוא דאיכא. This should remind you of, we had a brief discussion before Yom Kippur about should you do many small isurim, right, of having chatzi shiur, or should you just have the whole everything you need at once, right? Is it better to push off? Repeat the question. Someone who must, right? The doctor will say you must have an intake of 3 liters of water over the 2 liters of water. Make it easier. 2 liters of water over the course of the day. So wake up in the morning. We say, so should I have less than a shiur because I'll only be an isur, not a karet. So I say, wait. Do you have to drink now? The doctor says you don't have to drink now, right? So don't. Etc., etc. 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the doctor says, okay, now you must drink 2 liters at once, right? I know it's not medically upset, but conceptually, right? Is it better to choose to do many isurim throughout the day, or to say, I wait for when I must, and then I'll do a more chamur isur? But once again, there too, right? So I'll drink 1 liter at 12, another liter at 4. That's 2 isurim, but they're both karet, as opposed to the 78 isurim I do over the day, which are not correct, which is worse, the 2 or the 78, right? Now, we didn't go into the calculus there. We had other ways of contending with that question, but the Ran says that over here and says, I could either shech this animal once, and then I'll have 400 kilos of meat, right? Or I could have him eat another kazayit treif, 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 another kazayit treif. So? So he says, in a way, Shabbat is worse because it's karet. In a way, Shabbat is better because you do it once. Now, the calculus is interesting because what happens if the doctor says you need 3 kazaitim? That's all you need. What's worse, 1 karet or 3 kazaitim? How am I supposed to know, right? Right? So now you can say the simple answer is, what you want to say? You want to answer?
The same as last time.
Sorry?
Because of all risks, why don't we say based on what stuff?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. But the Ran, that's not what the Ran does. The Ran does this calculus. The Ran says, let's count isurim. He says, the Maharam's whole point is, what's worse, a lav or a karet? So the Ran says, well, it depends. Depends. I thought a karet is always worse. Well, 1 karet is not necessarily worse than 17 lavim. That's what the Ran says. Now,
it's equivalent to Rabbanan to
right. So Draban Doraita, we never say that, right? It's better to transgress 2,000 Drabanan is not 1 Doraita, right? If you must, Pikuach Nefesh, yes, not for fun, yes. That's right. Just to be clear about that, right? I know I kind of burst your bubble there, but it may be the answer to my question, but you say, wait, so how about what we need only 2 kazaitim? The chora card is definitely worse than 2 kazaitim, right? Yes.
In every kazait, you have a separate isur.
Yes.
One
No. Every kazait is not the reason. The chora. Again, will you actually get malkot? Depends on whether someone stands over you and says, but if someone stands over you and says, don't, even if it's 1 eating, so every kazait, unless you have the 2 kazaitim in your mouth at the same time, etc. But I'm not going into that math right now. But I think the Ran's answer is, I can't have people make things so complicated. You have to have a simple answer for people. The doctor says you need to eat meat. Oh, so now I can either shecht or eat treif.
Understood.
What's better? The answer is shecht. You say, wait, but if the doctor said you need 200 grams of, so there, you can't do that. You have to Pikuach Nefesh. You have to keep it simple enough. So since in most cases the intake will be several, and we don't know exactly how many, we say the ones is better than the many. So
It just
that
seems odd practically that people would have treif meat on hand.
depends where you live. If you lived in New York, it's so hard to get treif meat.
Right, on Shabbat, I have.
On Shabbat, you go to the local store and you buy some pork. Ma bayam. Well, you don't have pork. You don't have pork in the corner store. No, you find it shocking. Like, what I mean, you go to the corner store and buy pork. It says yes. What? That's what food in America.
Yeah, you live in New York.
Yeah.
The world. It's actually not. I'm sure you can buy it. I just wouldn't know that.
What is it hard to find? Is it hard to find treif meat in New York? Really?
No, I'm not saying it's hard.
Yeah,
I just wouldn't know. I wouldn't know where to look. You know, I had to.
It's hard to.
I had to fill out a process.
No, I don't know if you're living in Riverdale and the only Jews around you, or
And
whatever.
I couldn't figure out what this newsletter deli meat was. You know, it's if you don't know where to look, or you don't know. It's like I've never saw it.
Just live in months.
I don't know if you were to start shechting cows in Muncie.
Yeah,
Muncie, beside no, you start shechting cows in Riverdale or in Manhattan.
Yeah.
I think you'll get in trouble for other
There
things.
was a fuck house on the Upper West Side. For
Right.
many years.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember where my great grandfather's shechting. He had a shechita in New York. I don't remember where. So that's how he managed to keep Shabbos. He opened his own business. It was the only way to keep Shabbos. Anyway, says the Rosh, which I think is exactly what Glenn said. Because even for someone who lives in Chutz La'aretz, it doesn't occur to you that you could go buy treif meat at a corner store. It doesn't occur to you that's an option. And if I say to the guy, he says, "Here, I got you some meat." He says, "You got me meat? How'd you get meat? It's Shabbos." I said, "Yeah, I got bacon from the corner store." It's like, I don't know, right? I'm not touching this. Or even I got chicken. You got chicken from where? From the Chinese guy around the corner. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not touching that stuff. I'm not, right? They say, "What do you mean? It's only Nisur Lav." So, yeah. You can stuff your Nisur Lav. I'm not touching this. I'm not going to. So I'm going to have to shecht on Shabbos because you're not willing to eat from the Chinese guy? And the answer is, if he really is going to have trouble taking his medicine, so I have to do what it takes to make him eat his medicine. Take his medicine, right? Even if that means I'm going to have to mechal Shabbat. Now, Rav Shlomo Zalman has an interesting point about the Rosh. He says, according to the Rosh, what about if you have someone who's, until now, we never differentiate between someone chiloni or not, right? Someone firm or not. So it doesn't matter. You mechal Shabbat for a Jew, period, right? It's not a matter of firm, not firm, right? It's a Jew, right? But here, the question is completely different. Is this someone who's willing to eat meat that isn't kosher? And if the answer is yes, so there's no justification to shecht for him, according to the Rosh, right? That would be so the Rosh said it's not in your mind, it's not in your mindset, and therefore the person he said not in your mindset. So the Gemara is able to think of ideas that are not necessarily things we'll think about, right? We've seen a few Gemara like that, right? That's not the problem. The problem is the person will be willing to eat. It's a Pikuach Nefesh thing. So it's a tremendous chiddush. I'm going to mechal Shabbat because this person is too firm to eat my pork when he's sick, right? So why?
The other way around. So according to the Ran,
Just lie, right?
so even also talking to the Ran, so you don't have a Shabbat because the other person is, if the person would eat it, so it would.
If you would eat it.
If you would eat it anyway, so I don't have to check.
If he would eat it, I don't need to shecht, right? Yeah, so it's not only someone. It could be. I'll tell you what it is. Either the sick person has to either be not from at all or a lamdin. In both cases, there's no justification to mechal Shabbat, right? Because the lamdin will say that's not right. That's the famous Rav Hamital, right? You know the Rav Hamital? You know what I'm talking about? Rafi, what am I talking about? You go ahead. A person's on a desert island. Person in the desert. He's starving to death. What? A plane crash. Plane crash. Person's in the desert after a plane crash. Plane crashes in the desert, and he's the only one there who has his tray table up and his seat back in the full upright position, and that's why he survives and the rest don't. Now he's stuck. He needs to eat, right? He's going delirious. He needs food. So there's some dead animals around him, or camels around him, or whatever, and there's the people who died in the plane crash. So what does he eat? Now the people are only sur Drabanan, the Chorah, according to most Rishonim. The camels, the Kulam, is written in the Torah. Camels are specifically prohibited in the Torah. So what do you eat?
Guess he says what, right?
Right. So Rav Lichtenstein says it's unthinkable to choose to over Doraisa when you have the option of Drabanan. Rav Mital says it's unthinkable to eat humans regardless of the halacha calculus. That's
Rav Midan, that was very,
Rav Midan.
that was very funny. And he said like, oh, the Chassidim said the same about like an apple that was tethered, like.
Right. Yeah. It's not about a camel. It's a matter of like I see the Isser. I see
Yeah,
the
even over an apple that you didn't pick from it. So it's like, he just, and then he just laughed, like,
now
everyone agrees to it.
to what?
They love it, it's,
Look, the Gemara says shecht. Now the question is the question is why are you shechting her? You can just get other meat. So one option is you don't have other meat. There's no other meat. It's only meat. You're not in New York. You're in Nebraska. You're on your own. Whatever. I'm saying that there's no other place to get. You don't have where to get meat from. This is your only option. So that's it. But the Ran and the Rush and the Ravid, we'll see in a moment, all have different views on. All say we actually could learn something from this idea. So the Ran says you do that halacha calculus, we said before. The Rush says we take into account the way he feels about eating the meat, not because the feelings affect the halacha per se, but because they affect the refuah. Exactly. So the Rush says, and you see on the next page, the Rush says, the Rush says, but obviously, if shechting, the shochet now has to come from somewhere else, but you can just go to the corner store and buy the Treif KFC, right? You go to the corner store and buy meat right now. So of course, you're not going to say, well, you always have to prefer the shechted over the Rosh. Of course, that's not true. Right? Duran seems to say that there are two separate points here. Duran seems to say, what is the true halachic calculus? Truly, it's preferable to shecht than to eat several kazetim. So even if all options are open, you can do whatever you want. Still, right? The Rush points out two things. Number one, of course, you can do whatever is quicker, assuming that there's such a rush. If you say he needs to eat over the course of the day, he can wait a couple of hours, nothing will happen, etc. But if that's not the situation, you need the meat now. So ASAP, whatever, right? You need the meat ASAP. So you're gonna make do with whatever there is. That's first of all. The second point is it's all about his feelings, and therefore you have to play with that. You work with that, which means he agrees with the Maharan that fundamentally we would rather eat treif. We'd rather eat the treif. Elamai, you have to be practical. And practical goes both ways. When can you get the shachted meat? When could you? So could you lie? Says Rafi. So
What do we actually?
what?
What's the psak?
Lat, the Ravid. The psak is the Ravid. Now, says the Ravid.
By the way, the same, I think, the same
What?
Sarah could work for the person who's giving it. I would feel more comfortable checking the animal because another Torah Putra giving me the permission to do it and taking trait and giving it to someone.
He's saying you're not over love because you're saying that you have permission to do it. Yeah, that's it.
Rabbi Kamenetsky has this story, the guy who writes the stories.
Yeah.
About this guy had old age homes in America, and Jews and non-Jews, and the Jews would give kosher, and non-Jews wouldn't. And there's one woman, Jewish woman, said she wants to be like all the others. And he knew that his license would be taken away. He didn't like listen to her. He was full of faith. right? And he said, he spoke
Made
to
it.
her. He spoke to her and pinched me like she agreed. And I said to him,
What do you say?
what did you say?
What do you say?
I don't know. I didn't want to say it, and I just couldn't think that it would be ever possible that I could give some Jewish person to you. So
Yifa.
that's
Yifa. No, well, what you're saying is true. They're going to say you are transgress Shabbat so that it's because I need the person to survive. So if we're talking about Pikuach Nefesh, right? There's the heter to do it. Question is, now halacha calculus, is that the best option, right? That's the fundamental question here. Let's see the Ravid. The Ravid is what you've all been waiting for. Page 15, Yaakov. Says the Ravid, quoted in the Ran. Haravid Ashiv, Shezach Cholem, Eze Isur Omedu Makvo. What is the Isur that's in his way? Vadai Isur Shabbat. Lo Isur Nevela. Teda, Shiur lo haya Shabbat. מבקשים לו נבלה, לשחותה. כיוון שכן, האיסור עומד עליו מעכבו, הוא ששב ההיתר גמור. לא איסור אחר. פחד מתרים, לא איסור נבלה. What is in my way? If it only wasn't, complete the sentence, right? If it only wasn't, I'd have no problem, right? So I can say, if this only wasn't treif. Right? But he's saying, no. If it only wasn't Shabbos, I'd have no problem. Therefore, Shabbos is what's in my way, and therefore, Shabbos is what's pushed off. But you see my point, right? Who told you? I don't understand. Right now, what I have is I have a live and well bowl over here, and I have a well-cooked whatever, right? Meat dish, right? It just happens to be treif. What's in my way? So I say, well, in my way to eating this is the treif, in my way to eating this is Shabbos. You say, what's in my way? Right, you agree. Omedu makvo is what's detaining him, what's standing in my way. Right? Why is Shabbos standing in my way any more than treif is? So the Ran already asked this question. You see in the next paragraph that I bring. Tmehani, imken matzat only go to nechura. What are we talking about? We're talking about where you have a treif animal, right? Nachilenoto v'lo nishchot lo. Shekeshem she'ata omer she'isur Shabbat makvo milishchot, isur nevela makvo mileachol. Either way, that's the issue that's in my way. So in what sense is Shabbos more in my way? You say Shabbos is in my way, so Shabbos is pushed off. Now you want to eat treif, ma kesher, right? That's better. I can do this. I can do the same math the other way. I can say the treif is in my way, so the treif is already nidcha. So now you want Mechalel Shabbat. It's the same. What's the difference? Shim lo yisur nevela makvo hayal chelta, and then we wouldn't have any Shabbos issue. So what's the difference? למה עומד לפניו איסור שבת, יותר מאיסור נבלה? ועוד, אפילו היה כן. למה לא נאכיל אותו איסור שהוא קל ביותר? And he says, apart from all that, I still don't understand what you're saying. Say, Shabbos was in your way, so Shabbos is pushed off. לא הבנתי, תכלס. Here I have a love, here I have a correct. Say, but Shabbos is what's in your way. I don't care what's in my way. Shabbos is correct. Why am I not dealing with that? It's a bit of a strange... Right?
I'm sorry,
I think I get it.
I don't
What?
get it. Okay, you don't get it. Okay.
You don't get the questions, you don't get the Ravid.
I don't-
Right.
okay.
Good. Because that's what I was trying to achieve. The Ravid is saying, what's in your way? Shabbos is in your way. Pikuach Nefesh is doche whatever mitzvah, whatever Isur is in its way. Right?
Yeah.
Pikuach Nefesh pushes off whichever. L'chora.
Meaning, you want to eat the cow.
Yes.
outside, The normal thing next to do would be to accept this cow.
Right.
Because you say that's what
The normal thing.
the weekday thing. Wait.
Right. Okay.
I'm not thinking about it right. I'm trying to understand this point. He's saying, because we're at a different day of the week, you'd be able to do this. That
It's in my way.
in the way of in the way of reading.
Yes, in my way of
What's
treating the patient. Yes.
What's stopping me giving him the meal he should have?
Sorry?
What's stopping me have each of the meal he should have? It's Shabbat.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Shabbat,
And what's
Shabbat's macro.
right.
Okay.
Yes. And now what's stopping me from eating the meal that I should have on the other end? Because I have to. We're talking about a case where I have treif meat and
You're saying.
live meat, right?
Yeah.
And the question, what?
Okay.
So here too, I say, well, the treifness of it is what's in my way. If it only wasn't treif, I'd have no question,
Now
right?
thinking about it like that changed what your perspective would be.
So like this, the Ran rejects the Ravid twofold. First of all,
What's
First
the
of all-
Ravid saying other than like praising it?
well, what?
What's the Ravid's point? Like what's it?
I haven't answered the question. Oh, his point, his maskana is Shabbos is what's in your way, and therefore Pikuach Nefesh is doche whatever Isur is in its way. So therefore, Pikuach Nefesh was doche Shabbat, so you should mechalel Shabbat and shecht it. Now you say, wait, but I have another idea. How about I eat treif? Why are you eating treif? What's wrong with you? So there, that's his math. And the Ran says, I don't understand. I could do the same thing the other way. I could do the same math exactly. What's in my way here is the treif, and Pikuach Nefesh is doche treif. Now you're on the mechalel Shabbat. Why are you mechalel Shabbat? What's wrong with you? That I can say the exact same sentence. Why is that more reasonable than that? That's the first question. And the second question, he says, no, Dad, this whole philosophical idea of Pikuach Nefesh doche, whatever in its way, who said? I have a very simple thing. Pikuach Nefesh doche, the Isur that you need to over, and you should always go for the lowest key Isur. That's it. Like what is it? This whole math, this whole calculation, what is that bichlal? So that's the Ran's other problem. Like what? I don't know, the Isur that's in my way, that tachlis, there's karet, there's love. Why is this even a question? So now the Ran himself, as I remind you, the Ran himself says, I have a calculus, I have math on my side, right? 17 lavim are worse than one karet. So that's
about the second question.
Shema.
It's like Kuta versus Pikuya. And he said, the Rabbit says, Isur Shiba Tergamur,
Right.
right? And so, whereas the Ran is thinking in terms of Pikuya, and once it's Pikuya, you have to find at least Kamur Isur. So, that might answer that one.
Yes, I agree.
When
I agree.
you think about Bushra, apparently, and the right way to think about it, it's like whatever the Isur that's in my way, that's what's prepared, other things are not.
Yafa. So
It still doesn't quite.
we still need to define it at the sof. We still need to define it at the sof. Let's define this a bit better. Says the Rashba. No, I think the Rashba is going to say what Yaakov said. And then we're going to say, yeah, we still have to define it a bit better. But at least the first step is the Rashba is going to say what Yaakov said. Depends on who wrote Chuya. That's the Shuta Rashba, bottom of the page. Im nomar Shabbat utara etzel chole shochtin. Shelo asra Torah melechet Shabbat etzel chole. Lo asra Torah melechet Shabbat etzel chole. Right? That's what he said. Right? Shava heter gamur. Shabbos isn't in your way anymore. So why are you eating treif? Right? V'shochtin chole b'Shabbat because shochtin anu latzmenu. So that sentence.
Same on the Nevele. Nevele hutra lechole.
Right, the chora. So we need to. I agree. We need to define that too. We need to define that too. If I say dchuya, so enachinami. Right, we have if Shabbat is hutra, so then the Ravid is right because then Shabbat's in its way, so Shabbat is gone. But if I say dchuya, that means that every moment I say, okay, what's my best option? But the best option is mechal Shabbat. So techel Shabbat. I'm not saying not to mechal Shabbat. I'm just saying that you have to still assess what is your best option. So you have to do that math, as it were. Right? But still, as Yaakov, right after Yaakov saying what the Rashba was about to say, he said, you need to define this a bit better. What is exactly, why is that, right? Now, to answer this question, I want to see what the Maharam Mertenberg says later on in the same.
Just a small question.
Yes.
So we already have a principle that you're not supposed to wait around and think if it's an issue of Pikuach Nefesh. You're supposed to act. So why are we dealing with now the idea of calculation and the development of which creates more Isurim, Lavim, or Karet, or etc.? We already have a principle. You should
that you rush to do whatever.
Right.
So I think that it really depends on what situation we're talking about. If we say over the next few hours he needs to get meat, okay, where am I going to procure meat from? Right? If that's, you see what I'm saying? If the situation is such that expediency is necessary, right? So of course you're not going to start doing this calculus to say whatever. It's a funny thing. We just had this issue I'm in a Matan shoot group. That's you'll see why it's funny. Pikuach Nefesh could be funny. I'm in a Matan shoot group, and one of the rabbis there likes making trouble and sending tshuvot, sending klotzkashes to see how they cope with it. So he sent a question of, my husband is a very heavy sleeper. He wrote this as if he's a woman. Yes, my husband is he's weird. Let's not go there. He doesn't identify as a woman. He just posed as a woman. He wrote, my husband is a very deep sleeper, and what do I do if he doesn't wake up from the siren? And I'm usher during the time. What do I do? Right?
That was nice knowing.
Yeah, so I agree. In other words, I wanted to say you should write, I think you're wise enough to figure out this question on your own. Right. Well, yeah, so whatever he wanted, he compelled them to write something about what the siman in the end of Siman Kuf Tzadi Hey. There's a machloket Ramban and whatever the Beit Yosef brings about if you have to treat the spouse who at that time, and you do it you check the pulse, so do it on the clothing, and to go into the whole like pilpul of an intermediary, right? Bring a big stick, drop a book on his head, or you can touch the clothing, even though it is there, like. And I said, no problem. We're not going to all this. First of all, I mean, whatever, it's all stupid, because just take a book and drop it on his head. I don't understand what you want. But let's say, all that only starts if you have 2 minutes. Exactly. Oh, right. Up in the air, not down. Oh, exactly. So that's, yeah, exactly. But that's what I meant. He thought I meant I didn't even drop. So I said, fine, you want to go into all your cheshbonos, that's only if you say, listen, we have no children and we have 2 full minutes to reach the mamad. And it's right there.
You would say,
if you have 30 seconds, so don't ask stupid questions. Kiddo, just come on. Right? I was inclined to say, I think you're. Yeah. Anyway, why was I mentioning all this? Oh, because he said the halacha calculus. Because Rabbi Baruch said, "Well, why are we doing this halacha calculus?" So I say the same thing here too. If we say, listen, he must, right? You must give him an IV right now. Kosher IV, treif, just do it. Whatever. I can't. Having trouble. He has to drink something right now. Oh, but that's stam yenam. Like, do whatever. Add it. In a situation you need wine. I don't know. Kitzer, you need something right now, and so just grab the first thing you get. Right? If the doctor says it's very important, he eats a hot meat meal today. Beseder. So today is now. Where am I going to procure meat from? Do I go buy it from the Arabs? At least they trade. At least they shacht halal. It's worth something. Or do I just shech? So I agree that it's only relevant in those kinds of situations, right? The Maharam himself disagreed with Morenu, right? The Maharam mentioned Morenu, who asked this question, and he argues with Morenu. It says the Tamech tikshelu heichashachtin b'yomtov. According to what you're saying, why are you allowed to shecht on Yantiv? My question, guys, why are you allowed to shecht on Yantiv? None of you shechted on Yantiv? Not even in Riverdale? What? So what? Oh, says Yaakov, this has nothing to do with the sugya in any way whatsoever. Because even when I shecht on Shabbos, I'm doing a malacha on Shabbos, which is asur. I'm performing this malacha beheter. But on Yantiv, there's never the isur bichlal, right? It was built into the system of Yantiv is that all the melachot that are on Shabbos are on Yantiv, unless they are melachot ochel nefesh, and that too has gdarim, as the two of you hinted. But before the gdarim, so gdarim we can go into right. Well, why is this the melacha that's mutar? Lo meshane. But bottom line is on Yantiv you're allowed to shecht. It's not the mitzvah of oneg yantiv is doche the isur of shechte. That's not the calculus, right? It's built into the system of melachot yom tov. Part of the system is, and in the case where you want to, where it's ochel nefesh, is never asur. It's not asur at all, right? Now, the Maranburg doesn't say, no, that's not a good question. He thinks it is a good question. He thinks the comparison is good. See the answer. So, the Torah says you're allowed to do ochel nefesh, so you're allowed to shecht on yontiv, period. Hashtanami nicha, so he says, Pikuach Nefesh on Shabbos is as ochel nefesh is to yontiv. But it's even deeper than Hutra. It's deeper. Why is it deeper? I'll tell you why it's right. But I'll tell you why it's deeper than Hutra. So I'll give you the better comparison. The better comparison is Yibum. Right? The whole sugya of Ased Uchelot Aseh, where does it appear in the Shas? Sugya of Ased Uchelot Aseh. Right. The first 9 pages of Yevamot. Right. 8 pages, 9, whatever. Right. The first bunch of pages of Yevamot discuss Ased Uchelot Aseh. Right. That if you have an Aseh and a Lot Aseh, right, the only way to do that Aseh is by transgressing the lav as well. What should you do? Should you refrain from both, or should you do the Aseh, even though you're going against the Lot Aseh? Why is it at the beginning of Yevamot?
Something not allowed to.
So everything you're saying is wrong. I set you up. Because
it's like when I said last week about for QAM to the
correct, exactly so. The real reason, so I think you're right, but you're wrong. The Gemara brings that. The Gemara is discussing the Mishnah. The Mishnah talks about what happens if the Yevamah is also your granddaughter. So now you have 2 problems. One is that it's your brother's wife, but also, right, or let's make it something more feasible, that the Yevamah is your wife's sister. It's not only your brother's wife, it's also your wife's sister, right? That's not a problem, right? You know some people like that, right? Right, two brothers can marry 2 sisters, not a problem. The problem is that then they can't marry each other. Now, there are 2 reasons they can't. One's because it's the brother's wife, but also because it's the wife's sister, right? So here I have another Isur that had nothing to do with the Yibum. And why am I saying have nothing to do with the Yibum? Because Yibum isn't, I have Isur to marry my brother's wife. But in such a situation in which he died and had no children, then I have an Aseh of Yibum, which is that's not the way it works. The Torah Mirosh says, the Torah defines that Isur of Eshet Ach, the Isur to marry your brother's wife, is in the situation in which he didn't die with no children and left her. Right? He died and left her with no children. If in the circumstance in which he died childless, then it's a mitzvah to marry her. It's not another thing. It's part of the system. It's the definition of, so that's part of how you define the mitzvah itself. What?
His wife's sister?
No, that's not the Gemara. So in the wife's sister is incidental. That's the difference. Why is it different? Because there's no Yibum ever for someone who isn't the brother's wife. By definition, the brother's wife, that's where Yibum starts. As opposed to the wife's sister is incidental. In this case, it was the wife's sister. But in 99.99% of the cases, it's not. Right? 1 in, 10,000 cases of Yibum is the wife's sister. But all the other cases, it's not the wife's sister. It's just stam a different woman, and then in that, but it's always the brother's wife, always. So it's not another thing; it's part of the system itself. Last week we said this about met mitzvah, right? That the kohen being nitma, where the Torah says kohen's not allowed to nitma, the Torah also says in these cases you must. It's not another thing; it's part of the definition of the isur. So, Maranburg says the same thing will apply to ochel nefesh on yantiv. It's part of the same system. It's not another thing. It's not that only yantiv is duche. It's pashut. The Torah says you want to enjoy good meat on yantiv, so do it. That's it. It's not duche anything. It's just mirosh the melacha was never aser. So, and he says the same is true about Shabbat and Pikuach Nefesh, and that's the bigger chidush. And you might say, wait, but Shabbat by definition is always duche Pikuach Nefesh, and the doctors. What did the doctor say? Yes. because you'll never have a Shabbos in which everyone keeps. You'll never have a Shabbos in which everyone can keep Shabbos and not transgress Shabbos because of Pikuach Nefesh. It'll never happen. In the world we know, there's no such thing that everyone keeps Shabbos. Doesn't exist. Someone has to mechal Shabbat.
I mean, the memorandum.
No, of course, right. Because that's why. Because I don't want to say that sentence. Because I don't. Does it ever happen that soldiers have to eat treif because they're out? I don't know where. Yes, the answer is yes. It happens. How often does it happen? I don't know. It doesn't have to happen. I'm sure it has, but I wouldn't say by definition it must, right? But by definition, Shabbos, we have an army, we have police, we have doctors, we have nurses, we have. Someone's going to have to mechal Shabbat. So you can't say every Shabbat someone's mechal Shabbat. It must be that that's built into the system itself. It's part of the system, just like Ochel Nefesh is on Yontif, so too is Pikuach Nefesh to Shabbos. As opposed to Pikuach Nefesh to Basar B'Chalav is incidental. Just like the wife's sister is incidental. It happens to be, in this case, there would be another Isur. And then I say, is the mitzvah doche the Isur. Beseder. So when I have Pikuach Nefesh and Treif, so I say, Pikuach Nefesh is doche the Isur, correct. But that's very different from Shabbat where it's intrinsic. It's part of the system. Shabbat by definition is something which is always Nidchav to Pikuach Nefesh. And that's why the Ravid says, what's standing in your way is Shabbat, not Treif. Treif is another thing. Treif is incidental. How is it that your whole life, how many times did you guys hear of someone asking about eating treif because of Pikuach Nefesh? How often does that happen? All right, and Shabbos? All the time. I mean, now we're at war, so all the time, but right, Shabbat by definition is Nidchaim Pnei Pikuach Nefesh. That's, and therefore what's standing, and I think that's the Pshat in the Ravid. Pshat in the Ravid is what's standing for the Pikuach Nefesh is Shabbos, because that's the first calculus. Because Pikuach Nefesh is part of the eating of Shabbos, it can't be something external. Now, I'll bring another raya that it can't be something external. On page 1, you can find the raya from page 1 that it's not something external. The first Gemara, what's the Gemara's question? Minayin le Pikuach Nefesh dochet Shabbat. Why Shabbat? Remember way back when I asked why Shabbat? Just say I'm going to do mitzvot, whatever. Nice, right? Why am I going to do Shabbat? Davka? Because Shabbat is different. And that's why the first two limudim are also, they try to keep it contained for Shabbat. Because Shabbos is always going to be a problem with Pikuach Nefesh. Always and forever, Shabbos will be a Pikuach Nefesh issue. And that's why, regarding Shabbos, the Torah said define Kodesh Hilachem. Not other Yisurim. Basar B'Chalav is also in Chayav Pikuach Nefesh, but it's not, I don't have this broader, right, Isur Hu Lachem, so the Isur is only as long as it doesn't kill you, because it rarely does kill you. But Shabbat can happen all the time. It happens all the time. Right? Also, B'Shem B'nei Nasi, I think, is the same idea. V'shom B'nei Slot Shabbat, L'asot Shabbat L'Dortan B'rit Olam. I said then that my understanding of V'shom B'nei Slot Shabbat, what's the limud? The limud is we're looking at Shabbat as a present progressive thing. As I'm not looking at the contained incident of Shabbat, but I'm looking at the broader, how does Am Yisrael keep Shabbat? Broadly, right? Generally speaking, L'Dorotam. Right now, the question of Chilul Shabbat or not is a question that transcends the generations, right? It's a question of what's going to happen not only today, what's going to happen next Shabbat, Shabbat after, Shabbat after, Shabbat after, Shabbat after. Why? Because Pikuach Nefesh must be something that I take as I can't think of Shabbat as incidentally hitting Pikuach Nefesh. It's not incidental. What's the word? Chikuch. It's not incidental occurrence that suddenly I have to decide which Shabbat, Pikuach Nefesh, which one. I have to look as a system. How do I deal with Shabbat as opposed to Pikuach Nefesh? So, and I found something similar enough to what I'm saying in the Rav. Let's see the Rav. Not the Rav Yah, but the Rav. I hope so.
What page?
On page 16. The Reshimot Shiurim, Rav Soloveitchik, and Yivamis. נראה שהרייבד, see if the Rav agrees with me. I'm not sure he does, but I think it's close enough. נראה שהרייבד סובר שפיקוח נפש הותרה וחל בו דין הואיל וישתרע ישתרע. Right? By the header is like, it's not Shabbos, right? So, נראה דמהר"ם סובר ששבת הותרה לחולה שיש בו סכנה, ואילו איסור נבלה דחויו. לפיכך מתירים דווקא שחיטה בשבת ולא את אכילת הנבלה. עד כאן he just repeated the right of the מהר"ם. נראה שטעמו משום שיש היתר מיוחד לפיקוח נפש בשבת. special היתר, special היתר. כי זה בגמרא יומא, שבני סעודת השבת. אמרה תורה חל עליו שבת אחת כדי שישמור שבתות הרבה. You'll know the Gemara doesn't say eat treif once so that you could eat kosher many times, right? It says Mechel Shabbat once to keep many Shabbatot. Why? Because the pasuk is referring to Shabbat. מאחר שהמטר יוצא מעצם דיני השבת, right? It's part of the Shabbat system. That's how I understand what he's saying. הרי יוכל מדין הותרה. Why? Because it's not something else. It's part of the Shabbat system. כמו שחל היתר של אוכל נפש ביום טוב. היתר בשעה איסורי תורה חל מגזרת הכתוב וחי בהם. He's not saying not to eat treif when you must. But it's different. המהווה חלות דחויה ולא חלות הותרה. דהיינו שמצוות הצלת נפשות דוחה שאר איסורי תורה. So when it comes to other isurim, there is a gzerat hakatuv, but they just say it's a broad gzerat hakatuv that says you can't allow mitzvot to kill you. When it comes to Shabbat, we define Shabbat as something that's in Pikuach Nefesh. So by definition, Pikuach Nefesh on Shabbat is part of the Shabbat system. And that's why when you say, do I eat shecht, do I shecht or do I eat treif? So I say shecht because that's already part of the system. Something treif is something new. It's a new idea. Now, if that's your only option, that's what you're going to do. But it's not the automatic go-to because it's not what Shabbat always stands in the word Pikuach Nefesh. So